see a huge trade between the Vancouver Canucks and the New Jersey Devils. We're going to discuss a trade proposal that's been going around by lots of NHL reporters that might work for both clubs. We're also going to take a look at the Minnesota Wild, who are in the market to possibly acquire another forward. Plus, the New York Islanders, are they signing Nazem Kadri? Should they consider trading for another forward? We're going to discuss some potential plans for them. Plus, we have some notable RFAs coming up on salary arbitration. And we're going to discuss the remaining UFAs that are still looking for work as well. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we've already been NHL news and rumors to take a look at today. First up, I want to take a look at some restricted free agents and some arbitration cases that are coming up here in pretty short order. First up, we got word today from Elliotte Friedman that the case between the Nashville Predators and Yakov Trenin is probably about $1 million or a little bit better apart. Their hearing is scheduled for August the 2nd, so that would be coming up here on Tuesday. So we will see if they come to an agreement beforehand. Of course, with the rules now, once the arbitration case begins, you cannot settle outside of that, and you cannot negotiate. So in years past, before the latest memorandum of understanding, you could negotiate and come to an agreement yourself right up until the time the arbitrator announced the decision and the award to the player. So that's no longer the case. So we'll see what happens. They don't have a lot of time to get to a deal. Friedman's reporting that the team is looking at a 2-year deal at $1.35 million per season, whereas the player would prefer a 1-year deal at $2.4 million. So that's just over $1 million apart. And of course, a year difference on term. I would suspect the term isn't quite such a big deal as it is about the dollars. Trenin did score 17 goals last year. I mean, to get $2 million or better per season doesn't seem unreasonable. He also put up a total of 24 points, so kind of a Cy Young Award type of season for him in a way, not many assists, but he also scored 3 goals in 4 games in the playoffs. The Predators obviously were handled very easily by the Colorado Avalanche, and they didn't get a lot of goals. Trenin was one of those players who actually came through and scored in the playoffs when it mattered most. So to me, I don't think what he's asking for is overly unreasonable. We'll see if they can maybe bridge this gap and come to terms maybe somewhere around 1.8 to 2 million or something like that, and kind of go halfway in between. But time's ticking away on them. Some other notable RFA arbitration cases coming up as well. The day after Trenin on August 3rd is Jesper Bratt of the New Jersey Devils. The Devils also have a case with Miles Wood on August the 6th. On August 5th, in between those 2 days, we have Andrew Mangiapane with the Calgary Flames. On August the 7th, Kyler Yamamoto is scheduled for the Edmonton Oilers. August the 8th has a couple of different players, including Lawson Krause and Zach McEwen. August the 9th has Max Lajoie of Carolina. August the 10th is the date for Keegan Kolazar and Oliver Shillington, and several players are scheduled for August 11th. A few that were originally scheduled have already settled. Names remaining include guys like Tyce Thompson, Jake Wallman, Mason Appleton, as well as Pavel Zacha, now with the Boston Bruins. Now, as I mentioned, there's still several key UFAs out there looking for work. Now, all of these players that are kind of notable, is what I called them here for the video, notable UFAs, probably not all going to get contracts. Some might have to go on PTOs, and some just might not find work at all. It's really difficult to say. But of all these players I'm going to mention, I think most of them, I'd be surprised if they're not in the NHL in one way or another, even if it's a 2-way deal or something. But of course, Nazem Kadri, by far the biggest name. We're going to talk a bit about him. Is he connected to the Islanders, or what's up there? Besides him, we also have Sonny Milano is an interesting name that the Ducks let go, as well as Zach Aston Reese. I suspect they will get signed by somebody. Johan Larsson, who could be a 4th-line center for somebody. Tyler Mott, who was a Canuck and Ranger last year. Can't see him not getting a deal. Veteran defensemen like Calvin DeHaan and Anton Strawman. Hard to say in their cases. But if a team wants to add a defenseman for like a 6, 7, 8 spot, they could be certainly guys to consider. Of course, you get Evan Rodriguez coming off a really solid year in Pittsburgh. So obviously he's going to get work somewhere. Sam Steele's another name that I find interesting that the Ducks also let go. They let go of a bunch of your younger players that didn't get qualified, and they have not re-signed. So interesting that, I know Sam Steele hasn't exactly lived up to the expectation of his draft stature, but you know what? Like, he's still a really young player with some good upsides, a really good skater. I'd be shocked if somebody didn't give him an opportunity on a cheap prove-it-to-me deal. Of course, he also got some vets like Paul Stastny, Phil Kessel, PK Subban, who we talked a bit about in the last day or two. Cody Eakin's another name out there. Another defenseman, or Ryan Murray as well. all guys looking for work, and I would suspect, like I said, over the next couple of weeks, I would think most of these guys will find a way to get a contract, or at the very least a two-way deal, if not at least a PTO or something. Now, when it comes to the trade rumors of the day that I want to talk about, some of this comes from the Minnesota Wild and Michael Russo of The Athletic. We know if you look at the Wild situation on Cap Friendly, for example, they don't have a lot of NHL forwards. They could certainly use one or two more. I mean, there is the possibility they could create an internal battle and have a little bit more youth in their lineup. That's a possibility, but it's been known from Russo that Bill Guerin has been scouring the trade market, trying to add at least one more NHL caliber forward to this group of players. So obviously, if you look at their roster and to kind of figure out what they might be willing to move, it's pretty obvious to me with what Russo is reporting that defenseman Matt Dumba, who's got 1 year left in a $6 million contract, probably makes the most sense. He may not be able to extend in Minnesota. Obviously, we know the next couple of years their salary cap situation is pretty tight. They have a few other defensemen on long-term deals, and it just might not be in the cards to be able to keep them around. Of course, they could always cut salary in other areas, but that might be challenging to do. And obviously, with the depth on both sides of things, it probably makes more sense to move Dumba to get at least one forward back. Maybe if something, could be even multiple forwards or something for the future as well, depending on what kind of package or player that we're talking about here as a return. Plus, at the same time, they have some young defensemen, primarily Kalen Addison, who I think they need to create more of an opportunity for. And they could, obviously have him move up and take on a bigger role in the organization. Obviously not going to fill the void immediately from a guy like Dumba, but still somebody who's deserving of more of an opportunity here for sure. I would suspect some younger players like a Marco Rossi, maybe a Duhaime, guys like that might be battling it out to be your 11, 12 spots on the forward group. But like I said, according to Russo, Bill Guerin would like to add a little bit more experience up there to see what happens. Of course, the Minnesota Wild are also keeping a close eye on the situation with Kirill Kaprizov over in Russia. There was a lot of rumors and reports back, I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, when we saw the Philadelphia goaltender who basically was sent to like a military camp, and he's likely just signed his contract with the Flyers, and sounds like he's going to be held over there and forced to do military service and not come to North America to play NHL or AHL hockey. So there was some talk and rumors that Kaprizov could be in a similar hot water kind of situation. I know Bill Guerin's made some comments saying that he's hopeful and optimistic that everything will be fine and he'll be able to come back to North America. But there was some talk that he was wanted over there, which is kind of sounds like I'm not really sure that it was a legit situation. It's hard to make out what was real, what wasn't, but there was certainly reason for real concern based on what we've seen that was going on over there and other people being impacted. So that's another thing that they need to be wary of. Obviously, they're not going to make any moves right now as a knee-jerk reaction to thinking maybe Kaprizov's stuck in Russia or anything of that nature, but it's something that they need to be prepared for. But right now, they feel there's no cause for concern, so to speak. Now, on to the New York Islanders. Are they signing Nazem Kadri, or what is the deal? There seems to be more speculation today from a variety of sources that Kadri is indeed signing in Long Island. I don't know if he is or he isn't, but I've seen multiple reports from people claiming to have inside knowledge saying that it is a done deal. In that, of course, Lou hasn't announced. We talked yesterday about Lou's secrecy and what he might be or might not be planning to do, since nobody can really kind of get behind the Iron Curtain there. But ultimately, I think we're kind of leaning towards the possibility that it's looking pretty good that Kadri is going to be an Islander next season. But there was also an article from New York Islanders Hockey Now from Stefan Rosner where he suggested that if they don't go after a UFA like a Kadri or comparable, which there's not many on the market anymore, that maybe they should consider doing it by trade to find another scoring forward, and maybe Jesse Puljujarvi in Edmonton might be a good player for them to consider. Of course, he just signed a 1-year deal with the Oilers, avoiding arbitration. Certainly a player who you could say has lived up to expectations at times, but building on the consistency part is something that he needs to do and could certainly benefit from getting a bigger role on a different team. There's a lot of talk that Ken Holland might want to move him in order to kind of create a little bit more flexibility. There's been rumors that the Oilers certainly have their eye on some other players that they might want to consider bringing in, even if it's only a short-term deal. He or Yamamoto might be the players that might be more likely to be dealt. And I think Puljujarvi would be much more likely to be traded than Yamamoto at this point. But we'll have to see. As I mentioned, Yamamoto is also a player without a contract, still waiting for his arbitration hearing. Depending on how things go there, that could certainly potentially change things. But as much as I think Puljujarvi might be a good player for the Islanders, he suggested in the article offering up a guy like Kiefer Bellows, who the Islanders at this point have not really, in my opinion, given a consistent opportunity to, but has also not lived up to expectations. Maybe a swapping of players could be a benefit. Bellows doesn't really make much in the way of money. Could even be buried in the minors if need be. It would create some cap space for Edmonton, and it could also give the Islanders a player that, could play either within their top 6 or top 9 and, maybe thrive in a different system, different city. But we'll see. Personally, I really think the Islanders are probably not going to be doing much in the way of trades when it comes to making acquisitions. I think Kadri is more likely to be their guy that's getting signed. And I think the reason it's not announced is I think Lou is trying to move money out. That, to me, kind of makes a little bit more sense. Who he's moving out, I'm not sure. I would suggest that it's probably a forward, maybe a Josh Bailey. Difficult to say exactly. I know last year he was able to move guys out like Letty and Ladd, etc. Like he's done that in the past. Didn't have too much trouble, but now the prices seem to be much higher, so it's certainly a lot more challenging than they used to be. So I don't know, but Bailey having 2 years left, that's probably tricky to do. Otherwise, it's kind of getting tight on who's it going to be. I don't really think he wants to move Varlamov. I think he wants to have that Varlamov-Sorokin tandem for one more year before Varley becomes a UFA. They might have to go in a different direction after that, of course. Varlamov will be another year older. And I think you could say that he was a bit inconsistent last year, so his play will obviously kind of help drive that decision as well. But it does make you wonder what he's working on. But I think it's more likely that it's a cost-cutting move, and that's problematic right now. And once that happens, we'll see the signings of Kadri and the RFA signing of Noah Dobson likely announced and go from there. But time will tell. Now, another big deal I want to talk about potentially here would be a Canucks and Devils trade. There's an article in The Score. I've seen this mentioned in other places as well. It's been a hot topic around JT Miller. We've seen some other trade proposals coming out, and there's no secret that the Devils definitely have interest in this player, or at least they did. I would imagine there's probably fair to say that they likely still do, but it's believed that the NHL draft, they were engaged with the Canucks on some trade discussions, and things never got to the point they were serious enough to pull the trigger. But it was definitely something that was discussed. Enough NHL reporters had confirmed that. And if you take a look at the fact that the Devils were in on Johnny Gaudreau and they didn't get him, they certainly want to add a big-time player to work with these young guys to really help them take a step forward. They signed a key veteran like Andre Palat. So you add Palat, if they were able to get Miller in a trade as well and mix in your other young stars like Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, they might be able to get Jesper Bratt signed, but that's going to be a player that's maybe up there for contention. And you have some other young forwards too that can be dynamic as well. So obviously, the Jesper Bratt hearing could play a big role in all of this as well. And I do wonder if they want to get through this contract before they really get serious on any kind of trade talks, if they're going to re-engage here with Vancouver. But the main piece going back in the trade proposal is Damon Severson. And to me, I honestly think this does make a lot of sense. Now, I don't think Damon Severson alone is nearly enough for a JT Miller. Of course, he's a 99-point player last year, and I do think he has all the possibilities and potential to come close to living up to that again. Of course, he's going to be in a contract year, so for at least for this year, I would suspect he's going to be the same player. After that, it gets riskier as he gets a little bit older, it gets more secure. But at the same time, time will tell how that plays itself out. But Severson, to me, is a good starting point. Certainly a good right-shot defenseman. To me, he's a player that New Jersey, I think, is likely to move. If not now, then soon. Because they brought in John Marino. They have Dougie Hamilton. And I just don't see Severson being a third-pair defenseman. To me, he's a guy who can play in your first power play or second power play, depending on how strong or deep your lineup is. He's a good puck mover. Not the greatest defensively, I'll give him that. Like he's, I've seen some pretty bad blunders in his own end, but he's still a good skater, good puck mover, good offensive guy. I don't see that being third pair quality defenseman myself, but, I think the Canucks could benefit from having him in their lineup as compared to what else they might have options for, especially if Tucker Pullman isn't going to be able to play this year, which we don't, or at least to start the year, which we don't know yet. His health is going to play a big role in the Canucks' plans and their moves or lack thereof here as well. But certainly I think Severson plus obviously is going to be the plus. Could it be Jesper Bratt? Or could it, maybe the trade has to get a little bit bigger. If you have Severson and Bratt, in the deal on the New Jersey side, maybe it's Miller and something else. I don't know, like, because Bratt had a pretty nice season as well. Obviously, you know, and he's fairly young, so the Canucks might be pretty happy getting a player like that. I think these contract negotiations are going to be key here, but I think if the Devils are going to pull it off, they have the pieces to do it, and to me, their pieces make more sense for Vancouver than a lot of other teams. We talked before about a rumor that the Islanders might offer up Nova Dobson, and I think that's just, like I said, Vancouver media kind of dreaming and getting a little bit ahead of themselves. There's no way that's going to happen. But New Jersey offering this kind of a package, or at least some sort of a deal around Severson or Bratt or something to that effect, to me, does make sense. They have the space to give Miller his contract extension. It makes sense that he could be the veteran guy to help lead those young kids, along with Palat, to be the vets, to kind of show them how to win and to be that driving force behind them to push them. I think he'd be a terrific fit in New Jersey. There's a lot of great value here, just a matter of coming to terms on the right contract. But like I said, that Jesper Bratt arbitration hearing, I think will play a big role in whether or not these two teams do re-engage in a potential JT Miller substantial move here. So let me know your thoughts, something to discuss down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.